But as it's slowly, gradually reproduced, it doesn't need some of the same things that our eyes need. And so it stopped there.
You said that the octopus randomly mutated to where it is today, where it's quite comfortable, and now it doesn't need to mutate any further. Well,
okay, VenomFangX. You're caught here in both a quote line and a straw man. This gentleman, G0at, was trying to make a point that under certain conditions, especially when selective pressures are consistent, organisms reach what is known as a form of homeostasis with the environment. In other words, they don't need to change any further. It's not that they don't want to, or that evolution wouldn't push them that way. It's just that there's no reason to change. They're in equilibrium with their environment. They don't change. But you went on to try to restate his argument and something completely different. And, I mean, that's the straw man. So first you quote mine him, take him completely out of context, then you straw man him, and then you go on with this completely ridiculous argument that really shows your utter ignorance in regards to evolution.
the whole thing about random mutation is it doesn't really care about if it's comfortable or not, because it's random,
Okay. You're right. Random mutations don't care how comfortable they are to the organism. But what you're forgetting here, VenomFangX or Sean, is that random mutation can cause additions to the genome. Little changes, duplications, things like that. Too many to really list here. But that it's not mutation that acts on the organism to determine what traits are retained and what traits are not. It's natural selection. It's selective pressures from the environment. And that is very non-random. So your whole argument being based on simply the mutations means you've completely, as you do many times, ignore other aspects of the world that interact with the system. I mean, come on. You can maybe do better than that? Well, probably not.
A whole bunch of nonsense. Random mutation, right? Eyeballs coming out of your neck and limbs coming out of your forehead. Just really, really weird. That's random mutation.
Yes, VenomFang, you certainly have a whole lot of nonsense. Now, it's true, mutations could perhaps produce things like eyeballs on your neck or a limb coming out of your head. However, natural selection would select either for or against such traits as to whether or not they actually help the organism survive and reproduce. I mean, having a third arm coming out of your head could be useful, or you could just be simply punching yourself in the face, kind of akin to the way you're punching yourself in the face here with your not so good arguments and your lack of understanding in regards to evolution. You might want to have that removed.
Life, which you claim randomly mutated to where it is today.
Life that randomly mutated to where it is today. Well, there again, you're making a statement about the theory of evolution, and you're only dealing with one aspect of the theory. You're only dealing with the fact that mutations occur. Matter of fact, every single one of us has between 10 and 12 deleterious mutations in our genome, as well as maybe 1 or 2 beneficial mutations in our genome. That's just how it is. Mutations are very common. Now, what you're saying here, that it's just mutations leading to all the life we see, that's what evolution says, wrong. Evolution has mechanisms, selective pressures affecting organisms due to the traits that they carry from these mutations. If you completely ignore selection and only focus on mutations, you are not talking about evolution. You're talking about a creationist straw man. And hence, again, this just goes to weaken your own position even more. I mean, if you creationists cannot argue against the theory of evolution on the merits of evolution, on what it actually says, that really just means that you have no position that you can support. Your position is too weak to attack the real science, which means your position is, well, not necessarily false, but certainly not valid. Now, you could try to do better, but you never have.
Why is it that life randomly mutated from something like a single cell, and then mutated all the way to stuff like this, and like this, but for the octopus, it stopped. And for everything that exists contemporarily, it stopped.
Evolution stopped. No, actually it didn't. If it did, then we would be able to use penicillin for all, infections of common bacteria. We can't anymore because many of those bacterial organisms have evolved a resistance to penicillin. And these are developments from a mutation in their genome that gave them resistance. The fact is, what you're looking at when you look at the world today is a snapshot. So you're seeing a moment in time, a moment in evolutionary time. We still see organisms changing. Some change quicker than others. So it hasn't stopped VenomFang. It's still there. We can measure it, we can observe it, we can test it, we can utilize it, and we do it every day when we're, making new dog breeds or new plant breeds or new plant species or whatever. These things happen. And unlike what you might want to say, it's the same kind. Well, I'd like you to define kind. Because, kind can mean just about anything. I mean, are humans part of just the humankind? Or are we also part of the primate kind? Could we also be part of the, say, mammalian kind? And hence part of the tetrapod kind. And from the tetrapod kind, we're part of, the vertebrate kind. And from the vertebrate kind, we're part of the chordata kind. And then we're also part of the eukaryote kind, and on and on. Oh wait, then that means we're part of all the kinds of all life on the planet. So define kind a little bit better, just because it makes no sense, and this refers to earlier videos, not necessarily directly to this one. So, you gotta do better. Your arguments, same old hash, over and over again, and every time it's simply just a complete rant exposing your complete ignorance of the theory of evolution. Well, let's take a look at what's next.
Could it be that the actual story of what's going on here is that cats and elephants and octopi were actually designed, and that the random mutation you speak of is actually adaptation and natural selection, which fits the creation model far better?
Wow, this is the first time I've heard you actually refer to random mutation and natural selection in the same sentence. But as evidence for creation, no. Because, see, if an animal can change, can adapt, and then have more changes and adapt, and have more changes and adapt, and have more changes and adapt, you're talking the natural theory of evolution. The naturalistic view of evolution. It's not creationism, because we're talking changes and changes and changes and changes and changes, and it's all these changes that have over the last 3 billion or so years, give or take, turned a single cell organism, well, the descendants of that organism, into us. It's just little changes, little steps. If you want to climb a mountain, you're going to have a hard time going up the cliff, but if you go up the backside, where it's only, a 50-degree angle, you can climb it pretty easily. So that's going to be it. I'm going to invoke, you know, certain aspects of copyright law here, where I can use your image in your parts of your video. It's called Fair Use Act. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but you know, it's legal. Okay. See you guys